in the new world of performance development, as I prefer to call it, than performance management, what role does data play? What are we looking for data now, and has it changed?
Well, I think it has changed. So I would say that the crudest form of data is all we've been used to, which is like, ratings and yearly compliance and, have you filled in several boxes? Now, I think that's moved to much more sophisticated narrative, I suppose. And so with things like sentiment analysis, I think we can look at free text fields and start to draw more of the things that we think are important to people based on what's going on there. So that's just one measure. I think there's also something about the regularity that people are sharing and posting things in that sort of technical environment. So if there's a system that is helping people with nudges, it's giving them the incentives to record their evidence, to share feedback with other colleagues and give them kudos and stuff, all that data set is going to start to show you where's the vibrant culture, where's the positive intent behind what people are doing. And I think you can use that to then start to have a conversation saying, we've noticed in your division there's a fairly rudimentary thing going on here. Tell us more about what's happening. So I think it gives people, perhaps in, say, HR or in leadership roles, a chance to have an intelligently well-formed discussion with a team or with a leader with evidence that backs it up. And not just is everything going okay with your performance? Yeah, okay, that's great. So I think the accountability on performance management on a manager's side, or performance development, as you say, has probably been a bit lacking, and has just been, have you got it in on time, and have you put enough words in the form? Now I think we can be much more sophisticated with data, which shows us some things to have a stimulating conversation with that leader going, lots of your people are sharing feedback. Tell us what's going on there and what the result of that is. And I think we can look at the data trail that will then link to performance and go, look, high performing teams, lots of feedback. Not doing so well, no feedback.
Is there a link between the amount of feedback, how frequently people request feedback on how they're doing, and how successfully they get things done? I think what excites me on top of that is the potential for quite predictive analysis. Once you understand the trends, then is there a link? So say someone's frequently requesting feedback and we start to see that it drops off. Does that mean that they're a flight risk? Do we see there's a change in is someone leaving? Yeah,
definitely. And I guess it gives us a chance to have more of those conversations that are based on a real stimulus, not just a hunch. Whilst the hunch is valuable, the real stimulus gives us a sense of real, rigor behind what we'd want to do with it. And I was just thinking about the potential for like a merger and acquisition position. If one company has a particular sort of penchant for performance development, records it in a certain way, and then there's another company going to come into the fold as part of an M&A, and they haven't got that, you could almost see how people could start to understand how useful that is, and another sense of, a stimulus to be part of that conversation. They may have their own, and then you can do a compare and contrast. So you can say, actually, what we've seen here is, and so in a cultural sense, we need to respect that difference and integrate. So it could provide even that sort of stuff. So my guess is we have barely touched the surface of what data can give us as sensible things to adapt, adjust, and refine what we do in performance development reviews, conversations, and capture.
I think for a lot of HR people, the thought of AI and deep analytics can be quite scary. I don't know if you've seen much of this, but I've actually seen some of our customers not having to be super complex and super clever with this stuff, but just looking at the data and say, there's some simple insights that I can use to help us make decisions.
Totally right.
I'll give you an example. So one of our customers is a bank, and they have a number of values, and in our system that the feedback is tagged with a value, and they were seeing that 3/4 of the feedback was against 2 or 3 values, and one value had never had hardly any feedback against it. So it was enabling to say, do people understand that value? Is it relevant? Do we need to communicate more about it? So I don't think it always has to be complicated, but do you see HR people being quite scared of data?
I do. And I think it's partly because, as you've pointed out, they're not really sure about what it can give them. So there is a thing with data and analytics, really. It's almost like not what's there, but what questions do you want answered? And that's one of them, really. How relevant are my values? And that's a classic example where you can go, that one's not scoring, what's going on there? So, so I think let's get HR people to get more comfortable with the questions they want to get answered, and see what data can do for that. And like I say, my suspicion is performance management data will give us a lot more than we think. So I guess I'd want HR professionals to go into this with a really open mind and a really sort of exploratory frame, get those questions in, see what the data can do, and build from there.
I think another criteria for this is if you're going to make meaningful sense of the data, it has to be data that's pretty frequent and well used. Otherwise, it's not going to be that valid. And I think one of the things that I've seen people do is try and make performance management too complicated. And if you do, then people aren't going to do it properly. No. So it's about getting things simple so that people are actually engaging in it. Then you can get meaningful data.
Definitely. It'll have the reverse effect, won't it? So instead of trying to force more richer information in, you'd probably get less. So you'd want more, I guess you'd say, like stimulation and real relevance to it. And I actually think that sometimes when people know their data is going to be used in a certain way, that will give them the sense of the reason they're doing it, and they'll be a little bit clearer and cleaner and crisper in the way they use it. So we ought not ignore the fact that we're doing that and let people into it. Plus, I think it can base a number of really interesting decisions around talent, potential, deployment, reward. And again, we've barely scratched the surface of that. So I'm not suggesting that we would press a button and it would reward everybody, but I think we'd have a stronger evidence base for like, what should we reward people for? So I'd say to HR people, if they're feeling a bit reluctant to get into this space, just to play with it and get some conversations going with people like you who know what this can do.